The purpose of Freethought Forum is to be vigilant to the encroachment of religion into government and to educate the general public as to what a freethinker is.
My thoughts give me power.
No scholar can map them.
No hunter can trap them. No person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei.
Hello, welcome to Freethought Forum. I'm Catherine Fahringer, your friendly neighborhood atheist, the producer of this show and your host for this program. With me today is a friend of mine who has also hosted this show on several occasions and guested as well. I don't call him a guest because he's my buddy and I never get to see him. So he has consented to come, and it's Don DeNatale. Sorry, got the DeNatale mixed up with the Don. You'll think I'm a real good friend. I don't even know your name. Don is here to talk. We're going to talk about Christmas. I know you all think that Jesus is the reason for the season. Isn't that what they say, Don?
That's what they say.
And what would you say to that? Are they right?
I'd say, I'd throw a bit of their own advice back on them. I'd say, get back to the real meaning of Christmas, the original meaning of Christmas.
That's good, because that's where we're going with this program. We're going to get back to the basics, as some people are so fond of saying. I thought we'd talk a little bit about the customs of Christmas, how in the first place it came to be on the 25th of December. That had to do with the...
Yes, that has to do with the December solstice. In the northern hemisphere we call it the winter solstice, but as you know, it's the first day of summer in the southern hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So in Australia, they celebrate Christmas in their shorts and everything, and it's real nice weather.
Sometimes in San Antonio we do too.
That's true too, yes. But it is, the solstice is a time to celebrate in the northern hemisphere because the sun is starting to move northward in the sky. This northward movement causes the days, the daylight period, to become longer. At this point, at the solstice, the daylight period is the shortest that it will be for the entire year. And after that period, the sun comes back. So initially, in ancient Europe, this was known as the Feast of Sol Invictus, or that's Latin for the Feast of the Invincible Sun.
Mm-hmm. Interesting how sun, S-U-N, and sun, S-O-N, got kind of squashed together there. It's interesting. You can just imagine those poor early people when they saw the days getting shorter and shorter and thought they were probably going to be plunged into darkness and death. How happy they must have been. No wonder they had a festival.
That's right.
How much do you know about it? I know just a little bit.
Well, just a smidgen also. The Sol Invictus was also called by the Romans the Feast of Saturnalia. And at that time, it was not limited to one day. Okay?
Yes, that was from the 17th to the 23rd, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
I'm so bad at dates, but I don't know.
That's on the modern calendar. On the Julian calendar, it ended on the 25th. And that's where we retain the 5th. And the 25th was the solstice on the Julian calendar. Oh. On today's calendar, the solstice generally falls on the 21st. But it can be one way or another, or one day to either side of that.
I want to know more about that Saturnalia. That was, they really whooped it up.
Yes,
they did some
it
very
certainly
astonishing things.
They had a good old time during Saturnalia. The Romans would, they went so wild that they would actually change places with their slaves. They would let the slaves be the masters.
I found that
for
astonishing, yes.
Mm-hmm. And it, considering that slavery was such an institution that was so ingrained into the culture, that this is remarkable that they would even let this occur. Of course, the slaves knew it was temporary.
Yeah,
so
but how about slipping a little Mickey into the drink or something at that time? Wouldn't that be I mean...
I wonder, I just wonder how many masters might have lost control at that time.
I wonder too. There's no record of that, I suppose,
No, I
because
don't.
what happened was, I guess, the slaves took over permanently. We don't know the difference. But that was,
right.
I thought, the most astonishing thing about what else did they do during that time? I suppose they quaffed a few. And,
Oh yes, drinking was big. Also, various pagan, what we consider pagan rituals, were endorsed at the time. Sacrifices.
What kind of sacrifices? Like animals?
It was mainly
People?
animal sacrifices.
I
Yeah.
don't even like that. But
There's one possibility that there were some sects. That's SECTS.
Yes, right. This is a clean program.
Yes. that actually would either kill their local leader or a surrogate local leader. Like they'd have someone come in as temporary leader of the village or the area, and they would, the person would think, "Oh, this is really nice. I'm leader now."
Ooh, yeah.
And they would get killed. But this was not a common thing.
Well, not long ago in the paper there was an article about that. They discovered this body, and that was the theory behind it, was that this was because they said he was royal. He was an important personage. They could how they tell by a bunch of bones, I don't know, but anyway, they're very brilliant people, scientists are, and decided that that's probably what happened. But I'm glad that wasn't a common thing. I think it's...
No, it wasn't common at all.
I have never really understood, anyway, this blood sacrifice thing and how it got so ingrained in so many religions, and not just one. All through time, it seems that this sacrifice business has been big stuff.
It, I believe, would have to do more with what the humans who practiced that particular religion thought their god or gods wanted. And the more important the sacrifice, the
better
more the greater the return would be on that sacrifice. There are, of course, the old stories in the book of Genesis in the Bible about Abraham and Isaac.
Yeah, close, wasn't it?
It was very close. Old Isaac almost didn't make it.
Yeah,
if we were
sure. Just recently in the paper that one little Isaac didn't make it. So, well, as far as some of the other customs of Christmas, how much do you know about the Christmas tree? What on earth does a Christmas tree have to do with the nativity and Christ? I never could figure that one out. That's got me completely baffled.
This is more from the pagan realm of the Christmas.
Now, when I was younger, I thought
solstice
pagans meant people without a religion. But actually, paganism
The term pagan
was a religion, was it not?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, well, the old, you could think of the old Roman polytheistic religion with Zeus, and or in Rome it would be Jupiter and his mistress, and all of their children, Mercury and Mars and so forth, as the actual religion of paganism. But it was so common that the term pagan, if you look it up in the dictionary or something like that, you see that the etymology of it is that it means countryman. And it was just a guy from the country, or just, in other words, a regular guy. A pagan is just a regular person. Nothing magic, nothing scary, nothing
Well, that sounds like
idolatrous.
early humanism then, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and that's why some humanists don't really object to the term pagan or paganistic being thrown around, as long as they're given a chance to make their understanding of the term known.
Right.
And they don't think we run around trees naked or something.
Speaking of trees, let's get into that.
Oh, yes.
That's a good...
On the
Yule
Christmas
log.
tree, the idea behind that was that the evergreen was seen as a tree that never dies. There is
Until they cut it, of course. Silly
There is
fools.
no browning like there is in the deciduous trees that turn brown, lose their leaves, and appear to die annually. So as a symbol of life, everlasting, and that sort of thing, they
killed it and brought it in the house.
The evergreen tree and used it as sort of a rallying point of focus, if you will, for
which we still
for the
do
rituals.
to put our presents around.
We certainly do today. That's
well,
correct.
as presents, I think they tried. When did the Christmas, as I understand it, not Christmas, but the Christians celebrated, I understand it, on the 6th of January, the Epiphany, or the whatever they call it, and that was supposed to be Christ's birthday. But they sort of, was it because they were trying to convert the pagans that they decided and the pagans were so happy with their fires and their celebrations of this solstice season that
they went ahead and moved it.
They said, well, if we move it over there, we don't have to drag them away from all this fun. We'll put this dull stuff over here with the excitement. And so that was one way of dealing with it. I understand that this applied to other gods as well, the other virgin birth, I wish I could remember all their names, Mithra and...
Mithra was a central god in
fact, I read somewhere that Mithraism just missed by a hair of being our biggest religion here. That was very popular at one time and almost won out over Christianity.
That
would have been interesting.
The legends of Mithra parallel Christianity very closely. Mithra was also killed by authority at the time. So it's interesting that we could have all been discussing Mithrianity, or I'm not sure what they'd call it today.
I'm not either. On other things, I was looking up about mistletoe. I didn't see what connection that had with the birth of Christ either, which it turned out it didn't. And there again, that was, I think, supposed to have been brought by lightning because it was in the trees rather than growing from the ground. And this gave them a sort of a mystical feeling about it, I guess, because it was unusual. And it too would stay green. The tree would get bare, and there would be this lovely green mistletoe. And I can't remember which, probably pagan, Druids, I believe. Druids, wasn't it, who were so keen on the mistletoe, and they would have white-robed priests chop it out of the trees and catch it in white material so that it wouldn't touch the ground. I don't know when the kissing under it started. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know about that. A lot of the current customs are fairly recent. The Santa Claus, the image of Santa Claus, for instance, can be traced back to as recent as 1868 or somewhere thereabouts.
Oh, I think it was. I read somewhere, probably in something, that Clement Moore, was that his name, who wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas when all through the house not a creature," that was the beginning of the Santa Claus as we know it today.
Yes, and a painting that appeared
I think that was in 1830 something, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but still, up until that time, the St. Nicholas thing was big. But that was people don't know that was a double ceremony. I think it was May 6th and December 6th were the dates for the St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas, I think, was born in Lycia in Asia Minor in about the 4th century. But he is also, they're not sure he was an historical figure, but somehow or other these legends grew and he became the patron saint of children. And as you know,
the original St. Nicholas was probably more like the mitered fellow there, maybe even with a less exaggerated beard also.
Well, that's
something that we would hardly even recognize as Santa
Claus. Our little tubby, because he was
Yeah.
described as having a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. So I kind of like the plump Santa Clauses. They have a more genial, friendly look to me than the gaunt ones with miters on their heads. Which But there again, you know, it's funny. When I was a child, I tied God and Santa Claus, I got kind of tangled up in my mind, because it seemed to me that the reward and punishment thing was very similar. You're a good girl and God would like you and take you to heaven when you died. You're a good girl, you get presents at Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I really was rather confused in that area, and I wonder how many children perhaps are.
I agree, especially at the point when your parents tell you, or someone tells you, that there is no such person as Santa Claus. Santa Claus doesn't exist.
It's a terrible blow.
All of that build up, all of the years of being told that You've got to be careful because Santa Claus is watching you, this sort of thing. And then suddenly, or maybe over a period of time, you're told, or you find out that he just doesn't exist.
There isn't one. And then we have to turn it into, well, the spirit of Christmas is the ho, 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 give, 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 and all that stuff.
And don't you see that as sort of a training ground for belief in a deity?
It certainly is. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's a good training ground for it. Exactly. Marvelous. That's why I got confused, I guess. There I was. But I don't know about you, but weren't you just shattered when you found out there wasn't a Santa Claus?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, I was so mad. We were going to the Philippines back in and when I was about 6 years old, and I asked my mother, we're going to spend Christmas on the boat, and I said, ship. And I said, is Santa Claus going to be able to find me? Because, you know, what does he come down the smokestack, or what does he do? And she said no, she didn't think that he would be able to find us on the boat, and that something else, some other plans would have to be made. Well, that was very disappointing. And then later on, when Christmas came and there were presents there, I didn't like mine. It was an ugly little old boy doll. I hated it. And I went up on deck, and there was this little girl with this doll, the doll of my dreams, the pink organdy dress, the blonde curls, the whole bit. My doll, it was my doll. And I said, Gladys, where did you get that doll? And she said, Santa bought it. She didn't have any teeth in the front. And I said, oh, I was so mad because my mother had deceived me. Santa had been on that ship. He found Gladys and gave her my doll. I was furious. That was my first big disappointment. And then later on I found no Santa Claus on boats or on ships at sea or on the land or anywhere. So did you go the Easter Bunny route and all that stuff too? I mean the Tooth Fairy and all that stuff?
Yes, we didn't do too much with the Tooth Fairy in my family.
But do you think that's a good thing to do to children? I'm getting away from this thing, but I'm certainly this.
Well, I think this is an important aspect of the entire Christmas celebration, but it's a very fine balancing act, I believe. Yes, a certain amount of fantasy is okay.
If you explain it's fantasy, I think everybody can indulge in fantasy all the time. It didn't destroy my.
That's the important thing, I think. They need to know that this is not real. This is something we do for entertainment.
Yeah. It was my trust in adults that was shattered, and it's never quite been the same. Never. It really did something to me. So, well,
it can.
On this present giving, in the Saturnalia and the pagan solstice celebrations, did they indulge in gift giving, or when did that come along? I'm a little hazy on that.
The gift giving, I too am a little bit weak on the origin of that.
I suppose almost really I'm thinking of the Saturnalia, where if you gave your slave your place to play the royal, that's kind of a gift, certainly a swell gift for a slave, isn't it? Okay, I'm in command today.
Certainly is.
30 whacks. I wonder if they did that.
I would imagine that they really, most of them were smart enough to know that, hey, if you do something like that,
I might
when
have
it changes back,
the rest of the year will be awful.
Yeah, that's right.
Awful. Yesterday in the mail I got something that I thought was very apropos, because there's this fellow in town that worries a lot about my soul. And he sent me this, much to my surprise. It says on here, I don't know whether the camera can move in on this or not, this is a little religious tract thing, but it says that Christmas is, look, see how he's got it X'd out, and I thought, well, good, this is right what we were talking about. So apparently he knows that Christmas has other origin, that it's not the birthday of Christ. You haven't been yet to one of the Freethought Freedom from Religion Foundation bashes they have once a year, their conventions.
No, I haven't.
But when you do, and you get to meet Tom Malone from Georgia, he had the opportunity to write a letter about this. Reason for the season isn't Jesus, but the winter solstice. And he went through that, which I thought, and they publish him quite often in Georgia. I was surprised, because he's very controversial.
You don't usually think of Georgia as being progressive, do you?
I always think of them as being about the same color red necks as a lot of them I know around these parts. But it's every now and then I get the kind of hope that maybe it's loosening up and we can exchange ideas and well, like this, the information. But I find when people believe something strongly, they don't really believe it strongly. They're so filled with doubt that they're afraid to read anything that will make them examine their beliefs very carefully. So, as far as what other customs do we have?
The date that the holiday was first called Christmas, not many know that it's relatively, well, I'm not going to say recent, but there is no record of the term Christmas before 354 A.D.
Yeah, I read that somewhere too.
And it looks like it may have been in the mid-380s before it was really an accepted holiday.
And that's when they started this maneuvering and moving Christianity over into the pagan area.
That's right. Yeah. And a lot of the practices, not only in holiday celebrations, but in other areas of life, were just kind of co-opted or, I don't know, hijacked by the leaders.
Yeah, they were the Grinches who stole Christmas. But I know that many people do not know that, and I was talking to a neighbor the other day, and she said that somebody in her family had embraced this rather weird religion, and she said, you know, but she had the gall to say that Christmas wasn't the birth of Christ, it wasn't a religious holiday, that it was a pagan one. And I said, oh, no, you're joking. Well, I hated to tell her that, yeah, I'm sorry about the information coming from a wacko religion, but at the same time, that little green thing that was sent me, they do, some of the Jehovah's Witnesses, don't they?
They don't celebrate Christmas
no, because
either.
they have admitted that it's a pagan celebration. But everybody's always saying, oh, let's not be so commercial. Well, shoot, where would the merchants be without commercial Christmas? And where would the fun be?
That's
what
right.
What are you going to do all day? Just pray? Sort of dull.
That's correct. And that is, to me, almost one of the more attractive features of the season, where merchants get a chance to really show off their stuff.
Oh, I know, and I love the decorations and all. It's fun. We have a wonderful Christmas. We've always just really indulged and had a good time, and we had one thing called Ugly Christmas. We'd go to garage sales and buy the ugliest thing, and we'd have a contest to see who gave the most hideous present. And I won 2 years in a row, but one year I kidded Steve. He gave me this most awful thing one year. It really was a dreadful picture of ducks on a pond, and the pond was a mirror, and it was ugh. And so after Christmas, I tried to give it away in one of the collections for the poor. Like not the poor, but the veterans have something, and the good friends or Goodwill or something. And I put it on the porch with a pile of other stuff, and they didn't take it. They left it. It was pretty ugly. So that year he got the prize. I told him we had to reconsider. I would forfeit my prize because he definitely had won. I told him it was for the blind, and I think he could tell it was ugly. It was really ugly. So, well, do you have anything to add to this paganish holiday that we're about to celebrate? Do you do things? Do you have a tree and all that stuff?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. We have a small tree that my wife got for a very low price.
Where? Tell me.
Well, this was quite a few years ago when they were closing down the store that one of the stores of the chain that she works in, and it's not a very pretty tree, but it's something that we throw up, and then we have our presents underneath. And I think it's fine for humanists to celebrate this.
Yeah, I don't get this business where some of them seem to scorn it. If we didn't have holidays, we'd have to invent them. Now you have to have some time of the year where you can just sort of not be on the same old beaten path.
Got to have
change of pace,
a party.
Something, because you can be glad when it's over. It's like going on a trip, and you're always glad to get home and know where everything is instead of poking around in a suitcase for it.
That's right. But there are some humanists who just will not celebrate at all, and they just think of it as a strictly, if it's not Christian oriented, then it's pagan oriented.
Well, that's okay.
And it's therefore completely off bounds to anyone who eschews religion like we do.
Yes.
But I don't see it that way at all. I think that
I think it's fun.
because the origin is based in kind of an awe, respect, even fear of a natural event like the December solstice, then I consider it completely legitimate to celebrate that
I do
event.
too. Besides, it's easier to have a celebration when everybody else is having one. Try to
That's
have one
true.
on your own. I mean, things are not going to cooperate, let's face it. At times we have to march to that same drummer, but as I say, if we didn't have something, we'd have to invent some new thing, because it's just that change of pace that kind of renews us. And then, as I say, it's exhausting. We say, oh, why did I do all that? And I'm glad it's over. But there again, it's a release, and it's something we need.
Yeah, plus, there are some attractive things about this time of year, like the general feeling of goodwill that
People
permeates
sometimes
at least
are nice to you who weren't all the rest of the year.
And the charitable organizations really gear up at this time. There are places where people can get meals, that sort of thing, that they normally can't get at other times. And these things are all good, even if they are, some of them, done under the name of a religion. It's just that I like to take the good no matter where it comes from. And then I like to let people know that well, okay, you know, this is good, but let's really look at the origin of Christmas.
Yes, let's, because I do get a little tired of that mournful cry of, oh, we've commercialized Christmas, and it's so sad and plaintive. And then this one writer to the Express News and Light, he writes about this time of year about, oh, I think it's terrible not to have the nativity scene on, the City Hall grounds or wherever. He wants nativities all over the place, and you can go to Fort Sam. They usually have one. I keep thinking every year, I've got to call that to their attention. This is really not right, because it's not all mixed up in little joyful things like, whatever happened about that New Jersey case, the one with the creche on public property?
I don't know what...
I've forgotten now whether they said, I think they said as long as you threw a candy cane in there, it was okay. But then again, they had another ruling not long ago and said the menorah was okay, but the creche wasn't. Very confusing, very confusing. I wish they'd make up their minds and
So
just
as long
say,
as there's something at least slightly secular...
Just say no to religion in public buildings and with public money. That's all. Just have a whooping good time at your home, or if you feel religiously inclined, go to church. But let's not spend taxpayer dollar on religion.
They just don't see the separation of church and state as an important
No, it's totally
point.
ignored here, unfortunately. I can't, this is, of course, here is my favorite subject. I'm trying to talk about the origin of Christmas, and the next thing I know, I'm going to be leaping into the church-state separation bit. But, well, Don, it's been, I think, a lot of fun, and I hope we don't have to wait till next Christmas to see each other and have a nice chat.
Oh, I don't think
We'll
we
have
will.
to drag you down to a studio to bend your ear and get you to tell me about things that...
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, and thanks to your boss, and thanks to everybody, and have a happy. Bye for now from Freethought Forum.
I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure.
My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure.
My thoughts will not cater
To duke or dictator, no person can deny. Decadent sin fry, no